Welcome to the Brothers in Crime podcast.
We are brothers.
We talk about true crime.
We don't take ourselves too seriously.
And you shouldn't either. So, Bob, recently we were in Tennessee, and I know that you were unsuccessful in finding Sebastian Rogers, but we were successful in finding this year's CrimeCon.
Indeed, that is true. We were in old Nashville. I passed Pigeon Forge on the way. I didn't see Dolly Parton either.
That's a bummer for you. I'm really sorry. But
yeah, well.
I didn't even know CrimeCon existed until we got in the podcast game. But seeing that it looked like an opportunity to hang out with a bunch of like-minded folks and talk about true crime and meet and see and hear, we made the trip down. And I mean, I'm glad we did. We got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of inspiring fellow podcasters, and also, I think more than that, family members of victims and things like that. I don't know.
That was sort of the interesting thing to me. I guess you have in your mind, once you figure out that CrimeCon exists, sort of an idea of what is going to be there. And we knew that there would be true crime fans. And I don't know if fans is the right word. It doesn't seem the right word for this genre. But folks that are into true crime like us. The folks that have spent years going to sleep with forensic files turned on. And that narrator as our night guy.
Just a little messed up in the head. Right.
Right. And I know I'm not the only one, because I know others have confessed to that too. But the folks that tend to watch 48 Hours and Dateline and the other documentaries or the ID channel or those kinds of things. Folks are just into true crime. So I don't know if you call them fans or not, but we'll say consumers of true crime content. So I knew there would be some of those there. I don't know that I was prepared for how many just consumers of true crime content would be present compared to the creators, the folks that do podcasts or YouTubers or that kind of thing. And then obviously the well-known law and crime type creators, the big uns. Or who was it? Aaron Moriarty from, was that Dateline? I get there, or 60 Minutes, or 48 Hours. I get those all confused.
They all bleed together. 2020, it's all this. It's like the same thing, just from a different network. But yeah,
right. So some of those big ones, and by the schedule and the speakers list and all that, you've got an idea of really a handful of the people that are going to be there. But I think what was really surprising to me was some of the, what I would say are the folks who watch and listen to true crime. I guess I'm calling them consumers. Some of those people were there with stories. A lot of them have been impacted by true crime in their own lives. And even though they're not on the speakers list and they are not creators, they have stories to tell, and we certainly heard a few of those. I think the one that stands out to me the most has to be Rose.
Yeah, I was actually just bringing up the flyer because I took a picture of her daughter's flyer. So we met this lady, Rose. We were out in the smoking section because that's where you meet all the cool people.
And that's where you find Bob.
And that is where you find... I wasn't going to throw you under the bus, but okay. Yeah, so we're out there. Here's the flyer. I brought it up so you can see. And we met this really nice lady named Rose. She's from Brooklyn. If you know anybody from Brooklyn, you hear the accent, you don't mess with Brooklyn. And so I think we were immediately just drawn to her. And the next thing you know, she's sharing her story about her daughter who's been missing since 2016, Chelsea Cobo. Oh, wow. I mean, what a story. She was actually a speaker who spoke Sunday at 2, and I was able to hang around and get to listen to her speak with the host of the show, Missing. And my understanding is Chelsea's story is going to be featured on that in season 2 here shortly. I think it's on Hulu. And for me, the craziest part of it, which, it's awful. Her daughter's missing. She's trying to find her. There's a lot to this, and I don't want to give too much away. You should check it out for sure. But the sort of the wall and hostility that she's been met with from the NYPD that she's working with was just mind-blowing to me. There's one point in the show that's coming out where she's calling to just get an update, and she's talking to the cop, and the cop sounds clearly just somewhere between dismissive and annoyed. And so, Rose is leaning in a little on just like, well, what about this? Did you check into that? Did you talk to this person? And he kind of finally gets really short with her, and she gets emotional, and she says, I'm really sorry. It's not you. I'm not trying to this isn't anything about you. Like, I just want to find my daughter. I'm not trying to be some kind of way. I just miss my daughter. I want to find my daughter. And he hung up on her.
Oh, well, isn't that just lovely? Isn't that just what you want out of your law enforcement partners?
Yeah, and the host of this show, Missing, noted that there's actually 3 different cases that they've been either looked into, that they're covering, or that they've covered that this same detective is the detective on. So that's concerning.
Yeah, that really is. In Rose's situation, and let's just clarify, we weren't exactly drawn to Rose. The way we met Rose was we had met another attendee earlier in the day, and sometime later in the day, that same attendee comes bringing this woman toward us and saying, here, talk to them. Guys, talk to Rose. You need to hear her story. And so she was sort of brought to us, and the minute Rose started talking, one, I knew we were dealing with New York City. I am not good at distinguishing Brooklyn from the Bronx, and New York people, I'm sorry, but both of those have a very strong accent, and I'm not so good at distinguishing the two. But I knew it was one of those strong, Rose don't take no shit kind of people.
Right.
I was shocked to learn that Rose is 60 years old because she doesn't look a day over 35. That sort of took me aback. So Rose's daughter went missing when she was 22 years old, and she is now 30 years old. It's 8 years she's been missing. Chelsea left behind a 10-month-old son at the time who Rose is now raising. He's now 8 years old. I can't imagine the questions she's having to answer. I can't imagine what she's thinking when she looks at him. There's been some, I'm not going to hold back details because, anybody that might have any information here.
Well, I think that's good. I just meant about stuff that was featured specifically in the episode. But yeah, details about Chelsea and her case, I think that's fair.
I didn't see any previews of the episode. I just talked to Chelsea's mom, Rose, for a while. Unlike some of these missing person cases, Rose has actually been reached out to by several people claiming that they know what happened to her daughter. And one of those claims is that she was sold into sex trafficking. And so the last thing Rose said to me, which broke my heart, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, so these aren't her exact words, but basically she's torn because between her being alive and knowing that she might be being sex trafficked for the last 8 years or being used as a human incubator to create babies, that would be a horrible, horrible life, and Rose knows that. So she is struggling with those realities every single day, and she refuses to give up on finding her daughter. In fact, she's created an app to help locate missing people. Talk about somebody turning something really horrible, trying to make it positive. So she was there also as an exhibitor showing her app and how it worked. So God bless her. And it breaks my heart for Rose. There were a lot of people there exhibiting and that we just bumped into that were there because of missing people.
A lot. I mean, like, a lot. And we've posted on social media the board that they have at CrimeCon where you can post your flyers and things about people, these cases. And, Chelsea's was one of many. I mean, many. And so if you go to socials, you can see just how many flyers and pictures and postcards are posted there. Before we kind of wrap up on Chelsea's case, though, I just want to say she was last seen in Brooklyn, May 2016. She's 5'3", 150 pounds. If you have any information, or if you think maybe you know something, you can help. You've seen her, you've heard something. I would say contact Rose directly. You can find, she's on Twitter and Facebook and everything. I think on Facebook the group is like Find Chelsea Cobo. Rose is, she makes herself very available and easy to be found. So if you have any information or if you know anything, please reach out to Rose and share that.
Yeah, and Rose does not mince words.
No, we like that about her very much.
Yeah, lots of love her way. Send some prayers up for Rose, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. And
give her strength and encouragement.
Yeah, it's a horrible situation to be in for that whole family. So
every one of the missing persons really just pulled on me because it wasn't a news story about a missing person. It wasn't a podcaster talking about a missing person. We were talking to the families of people who are missing for years and shouldn't be, and there's no explanation. You know, we talked to the private investigator who's sort of leading the charge on trying to find the one young man, and I'm sorry I don't remember all the names, but these are people that are invested in these, I don't even want to call them cases, but these tragedies of human life and people. Yeah, they are all in, 100% in. And to that extent, something else that I found pretty interesting there at CrimeCon was the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We had the, I don't know what you call them, the forensic age progression lady who was so sweet and so kind. I don't know how they do this.
Here.
But that's what we saw. So she's sitting there at a table in this packed exhibit hall, and she's actually working on a photo progression there as all these people are around. It's loud as heck, and people are stopping and asking her questions. And to watch her work was just amazing. She starts with these pictures of all the family members and of the missing person. So she's taking someone that maybe went missing when they were 14 years old. I think the one she was working on when we stopped by. She's got a 14-year-old that's been missing for 10, 12 years at this point? Well, obviously she's not going to look like she did when she was 14. So this brilliant art/scientist has pictures of the mother, the missing child, the aunt, and she is taking all those things.
And the sister, too, I believe.
Right.
And then has them at the age. So what she did is she asked the family members for pictures of, okay, when you were around the same age as the missing girl would be now, let me get a picture like that, so then I can see what you looked like when you were that age.
And
pretty cool.
I asked her about, how applying these features and whatnot, and she was explaining some of her process. Obviously, I'm not going to have a degree in photo progression after a 5-minute conversation, but it was a very interesting process. And then the part that I find most intriguing is that she gets to certain points in this process where she has to make judgment calls and best guess based on all of her experience and all of the photos that she's ever looked at in her life to fill in the blanks. She uses those familial aging characteristics, genetics and family. We tend to age in the same family in similar ways, but then she's got to fill in that gray area just based on her experience and expertise. And the stuff she produces is just amazing. It's just incredible. Hands down for the fact that she was sitting in that crowded, confusing, ridiculous exhibit hall. We talk about that if you want, but still not only being super productive there, but also stopping and being so polite to everyone that stopped and asked her about her craft.
Yeah, seeing the NCMEC, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, people that work there doing what they do. There was also a guy who throughout the weekend was taking a skull and adding the clay to create an approximation of what this person, this unknown individual, what they might look like. That was incredible too. I had a chance to talk with him, and just the work they do. I mean, it is, I don't know that most people realize all of the different things.
I don't have the patience for that. I'll tell you right now. Because here's what I know about their work. And I didn't talk to that guy, but I did see him several times. And I thought, I already bothered one of their people. I'm not going to bother this guy. But they start with the skull, and you have a skull, you have no idea who it is. Well, we need to put a face on this person. Maybe we can identify them. So they start by, cutting these little things that look like dowels to the thickness of the skin in each area of the face and head and whatnot. So that sort of gives them their level of kind of where the clay needs to come out to. But if I just slapped clay on at those levels, it would look like an alien. So then they've got to put in the features, everything from how big the eyes are to how far apart. I mean, every single detail.
Yeah, I got a picture here. And the tools he's using, I mean, he's got everything from your standard, like, drywall. What's this thing called? I just use it. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, a spackle knife?
Yeah, I think you're right. He's got, like, just a standard 2-inch one of those. And then he's got all these, fine tools where you can, do more detailed work and stuff. But Bob and I are never that great with the Play-Doh. This dude, I mean, I'm with you. I don't have the patience for that, but it was pretty incredible just to see.
My Play-Doh always dried out and got hard and turned into play rocks.
Now to backtrack for a second, because you had brought this up, I know you couldn't remember the name, but the name of the missing young man down in Texas was Jason Landry, He's 21 years old, and he disappeared on his drive home from school. He was in school in San Marcos and was heading home to Missouri City, Texas. And my understanding is that he was missing in a town or an area known as, I think it's Lulling, Texas. And a bizarre story from talking to the private investigator who was involved with the case. It sounds like
You ain't got to be Dick Tracy to say something ain't right here.
His clothes were outside of his car. The car was like sort of off the road. I think maybe sort of crashed, not crashed, but clearly not, like, you know, just sitting on the road. That's all whatever. But then where it gets really strange, the thing that kind of made me think this is really, really weird is, you know, he's coming home from school, and so apparently he had this like a betta fish and a little betta fish in a betta fish tank, and that was found like outside the car, you know, on the ground some distance, maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 yards away from the car. So
along with all of his clothing.
Yeah, like socks, underwear, everything. So,
yeah.
So he's naked, as you would say, somewhere, and they've never been able to find him. He's still missing. So if you happen to know anything or could be of some assistance, please reach out to the investigator. I'm sure if you Google Jason Landry, they've got web pages and everything set up. So that's that case you were thinking about. You know, now I want to switch gears, something a little more fun. I snapped up a photo. I don't even know if Bob knows I took this photo, but we're there, and, you know, there's all these people that you've seen and heard, and you feel like you know even though you don't know. And so one of those was Dr. Michael Baden and his wife, and they were kind of like walking around this place, and it's huge. It's at the Gaylord in Nashville, and it's gigantic, and it felt like the way a casino's laid out, where it's intended to sort of confuse you and make you just walk in circles and see everything before you get where you're going.
Right.
And so he had that look that I had the whole time I was there, which is like, where do I go? And so Bob introduced himself and said, you know, do you need some help? And he was trying to find his badge, and so I snapped a picture of Bob escorting him to the help desk. I don't know if that was a fun moment for you or not, but it seemed like it. So,
well, you know, I love helping people, and there was something really weird about that. It's Dr. Baden, by the way.
That's not how I say it, but
not
okay.
Baden, it's Baden, Dr. Baden and his lovely wife. And there's a couple of interesting things there. Number one, he is a down-to-earth, like, just you would never know that this guy has been on every freaking TV network in the world.
That he's looked at every important dead person's body since, like, Kennedy.
Yeah, you would not, because this guy walked in just looking like maybe he just stepped out of his garage working on something.
He was working in his garden with his wife. Yeah, that's what I think. Like,
he wasn't dirty, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Just no pretentiousness, not putting on any airs, and he was looking lost. And yeah, I think we already said that he's a world-renowned forensic pathologist who's called in on almost every major case, if not directly as part of the investigation. He's almost always consulted by the major news outlets and the minor ones. But I'm kind of shocked that he and his wife are here at this conference as speakers, and they've just wandered into the Bermuda Triangle, you know, and don't know where they're supposed to be or what to do. Like, you know, I guess we need a badge, and then we're supposed to go to this podcast thing. That's what his wife told me. You know,
right.
we need to get to this podcast deal. This was late in the day, so the main area where you get your badge in the morning, that's closed, and now you have to go to a help desk. So yeah, I did what I've always done in customer service. You don't just point and tell somebody, yeah, it's over there. You take them to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took him over there, and he was behind me, and I had looked and noticed that he had gone to the back of the line. He didn't expect anything special. He's at the back of the line for the help desk, and I was like, but he's a speaker here, and he needs to be somewhere. So I went up to the front and kind of tucked in the corner there to the ladies that are working it and said, Dr. Baden and his wife are here and they need their badges. And she said, okay, probably thinking, who the hell are you?
Yeah, you're not anybody special.
But I'm not, you know, I don't know. I'm used to just getting things done. I didn't mean it to be like I'm special or anything. I just thought they would want to know.
No, you're special, Bob. Don't worry.
That one of their guest speakers, one of their main people, is here and lost. And this will go to, I'm going to give you my gripes, and we'll make this one the first one. There should have been someone at the valet entrance. I'm assuming Dr. Baden and his wife parked in valet, but I don't know. They might have taken a bus.
They might have walked in.
But and maybe CrimeCon had this worked out, and Dr. Baden and his wife just don't do celebrity things. But I would have expected someone to be waiting for them, meeting them at the door to get them where they needed to be. because they're not there just to wander around for the day. I'm sure they did some wandering. Well, they did because they were lost and they found us.
Poor them.
And we did not use this as a promotion opportunity. I just said, I'm Bob. We shook hands. I didn't say, and Will didn't say, we're brothers in crime. We have a pot. None of that stuff.
No, we accosted other less important people, but
right.
Not Doctor.
Right. He was on a mission. The man's there trying to do something. He don't want to be hassled by us. But even when I walked away from him after I went up front and told him he's there at the back of the line waiting, as I'm walking past, he reached out his hand and shook it and said, thanks, appreciate the help. Hope to see you again.
That was really cool. I thought, I was just watching it while you were doing your thing. That was probably my favorite part, was at the end whenever he thanked you. And that was neat.
And I'm thinking, dude, you're at the back of the line. You're not at all like some of these pretentious, uppity people.
Well,
you're just normal people.
Yeah, as a guy who spent the whole weekend, I don't have the best sense of direction, and I'm one of those people that goes off of landmarks, not like maps and stuff. And so at this place, everything basically looks the same.
Yes.
There's some color changes that I picked up on pretty quickly because, like I said, I'm more about landmarks. So I knew, like, based on the color on the plaque on the area of the hotel you were in, whether you're going the right direction. But each area is huge in and of itself, so that's only so helpful. But as a guy who spent basically that whole weekend lost, I could very easily recognize when somebody else was lost too.
Like you recognize when John Ramsey was lost.
I sure did, and I was like, holy crap, that's okay. That was the most interesting part to me, was seeing so many people that, you see on TV, and you're like, well, yeah, they put their pants on one leg at a time just like me, but it is interesting to just be in the same space with them. So. Right,
especially the ones that we met, like John Ramsey. And whether you love John Ramsey or hate him, you see him on TV all the time, so it's sort of this thing. You realize he's just really a regular dude. And the Bodens, of course, and then we were very...
Well, and you photobombed that poor woman's selfie with Vinnie Politano.
Vinnie Politan.
Whatever.
And I didn't photobomb.
Yeah, well, you say that, but that's what I saw you do.
You didn't photo... There was a lady who had told us how she was going about meeting all the celebrities by, one, appearing at the Starbucks at a certain time in the morning when they all come in. Supposedly, that's what she said. And then she gave us the lowdown on who was lurking around and what they were wearing, which, whatever. I wasn't stalking them.
That's funny.
But as we were going through that god-awful organized exhibit hall, where you're crunched in amongst people, and we're making a turn and going down another little lane there, I hear someone talking, and then I hear somebody ask for a picture, and this voice say, and Vinny's got a pretty, distinct voice. So that's when I looked over, and I remember the lady saying, oh yeah, Vinny's in there. He's wearing a black shirt and blue jeans. And so I turned around, and I looked at his butt, but I wasn't looking at his butt. I turned around because I saw a black shirt, and I thought, oh, wonder if he's got on blue jeans. So I looked down, I'm like, great, now there's probably a selfie of me checking out Vinny Politan's ass.
Allegedly, you weren't checking his blue jeans. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is great. Oh, man. Well, and speaking of meeting people, which I really did enjoy. I mean, to me, that was the best part of CrimeCon, was making connections with folks, whether it was the family members of missing folks or victims or things like that, or other podcasters. And one of the people it was a kind of a privilege to meet, checks a lot of those boxes, was Bill Thomas, and he's the host of Mind Over Murder podcast. He's also the brother of Kathy Thomas, who was one of the first known victims of the Colonial Parkway murders. And he and his co-host on Mind Over Murder, Kristen Dilley, were on a panel discussion. They kind of gave some updates on the case, and then we were able, after that, in the exhibit hall, that, as Bob described, it was a little interesting to navigate. But we got to spend some time and just introduce ourselves and meet them face to face. We've kind of interacted with Bill over the interwebs since we got started. That was one of the first cases that we talked about on the podcast. And so we'd reached out to him pretty early on. So it was just a pleasure to get to meet him in person, having been somebody that we've sort of talked to and kind of known electronically for some time.
And like most of the people we met there, talking to Bill, we talked to him and he talked to us like we had known each other forever.
Mm-hmm.
There were no distance, no airs. We were true crime guys talking about our, mostly about that case and the frustration with the
the FBI not like to just test and probably the Virginia State Police to some extent, but getting some testing done, and also the press conference, the way that was handled, and some things that have been done with the victims' families that are
I think
they just need to do better.
I think we'll tell them. We did a case update a while back where we talked about how there had been a suspect identified by DNA after his death as committing one of the sets of Colonial Parkway murders, along with the murder of another woman. This man had been linked to both of those. And you probably remember I was pretty irritated when we did that update because this man had been identified as a strong suspect many, 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 many years ago.
In Keith and Sandy's case. Yeah.
Right. He was a strong suspect before some of these murders happened, but after some of the others. So the point there is, had he been apprehended, some of these murders could have been prevented.
But Bob, he passed a polygraph.
Right. And the FBI said, oh, he passed the polygraph. He's not our guy. Moving on. And I think that is absolutely insane. I don't know why. We don't understand. I mean, the polygraph is a tool. It's not admissible in court. There's a reason for that. It's not reliable enough to be a lie detector. Mm-hmm. It can give you information about topics or areas that you might want to pursue further in your interrogation, but that's about it. And for the investigation into this guy to stop because he passed a polygraph is asinine. Mm-hmm. But it gets even worse because, okay, so they come out, they hold this press conference and say, look, we've identified this guy. He's been dead now for 5-6 years, but by DNA, we know that this guy was responsible for one of the couple murders in the Colonial Parkway and this other lady. And the interesting thing is that press conference was scheduled in advance, and Bill Thomas, who is the brother of Kathy Thomas, who's among the first killed, he was detoured by an FBI agent, one of the ones he talks to regularly, made an appointment to get him on the phone and kept him on the phone for several hours to prevent him from being at or watching this press conference. And that's just disturbing as hell to me. He is a victim. His sister was killed, and he has, in many ways, led the charge for the families of these 7 other people that were killed.
For nearly 4 decades.
Right.
This isn't like a 2-week thing. I mean, this guy has been living this basically most of his life.
And they intentionally and I'm not making this up. This is what he said he was told, after the fact, that they did not want him watching the press conference or at the press conference.
And responding to people. Because the thing was, while he's on the phone call, his phone's blowing up because everybody's wanting to know why he's not tweeting and why he's not talking and why he's not. And you think about it, right? I mean, I don't know how he would have handled it, but it wouldn't shock me if he live tweeted his thoughts, or if he went live on, the podcast or YouTube or whatever to just sort of share what he was thinking as it was happening.
Right. And he has an audience, and had he been present to that conference, he might have asked questions. And I don't think they wanted questions. I think they wanted to tell a very specific story and nothing more. Because the main question here is, okay, for whatever reason, you couldn't get this dead guy's DNA until,
Well, and that just happened by accident. The only reason they even got it was because they had to identify his body, and then when they ran it, they were like, oh, okay, well, he was he murdered some people.
Right, but the worst part here is this dead guy's DNA, they've matched it to these 2 of these cases, and you might think, well, great, so he wasn't responsible for the others. We don't know, because his DNA is not in CODIS, and it can't be put in CODIS, because he is not a criminal officially, because he was dead before he could be charged with anything.
Which, as Bill pointed out, how does a dead person have civil rights? Which is a good question.
Right. And the problem is that Bill, along with many others, myself included, think this guy's DNA should be put into CODIS because he's sketchy as hell. Even back when he was originally a suspect, they found some creepy shit in his house when they did a search. Mm-hmm. The truck matched the description seen in the area, not only in these cases, but in many other cases where there was someone approaching people at night. So this guy just has it written all over him that, maybe he didn't do all the Colonial Parkway murders.
I think he did. I mean, when we did the original episodes and we did the final one where we put it all together and we I don't know what your personal opinion is, but we played a little bit of devil's advocate. I mean, I firmly believed that they were committed by the same person. I couldn't tell you 100% it was, but it's just that's my thought. And now seeing this and this guy, and when you look at all the different crime scenes, he had connections to all of them.
Yes.
And it's like
And
you said it, you always said it's like there's a piece of the puzzle that's missing, and when they figure that out, it'll all make sense. And his background was like the piece of the puzzle. It was like,
right.
Oh, this is a guy who's on the water and in the woods and whatever, and has all these connections, and now it makes sense. Now, I saved something for you that you don't know. So I pulled this up here on the screen just yesterday. Nick from True Crime Garage tweeted out about, and this guy's name, this dirtbag, is Alan Wilmer Sr., and so he's tweeted out, and there's not a lot of information here, but there must be some thinking that this guy is also connected to the murder of Amber Lundgren, which happened in June 7th of 1997 in Asheville, North Carolina.
I think this picture will become much clearer once we find out, if we ever find out, all of the crimes that this guy was involved in. And I was one of the ones looking at the Colonial Parkway murders saying, okay, that maybe they're not all the same guy. There's some distance issues, that they're not tight together, and then there's one over here that's, sort of off and different. I think the issue is that if you zoom out a little bit, you find out everything that this dirtbag was involved in, I think you're going to find a lot more dead people in a much broader area throughout the state of Virginia, North Carolina, and some of those areas that he operated in. I think you're going to find a whole lot of bodies with his name to it. And if I understood correctly, one of his brothers or two of his brothers may have been accomplices, which would explain so much.
Yeah, there was some, and just to be clear, we're not, we don't know that. Nobody's been charged. A lawyer disclaimer, but that has been some of the rumblings and the rumors and the speculations, is that perhaps he either had a friend or maybe one of his brothers that could have potentially been involved. But to your point, and I think this was something Bill said at CrimeCon, right? Maybe the reason that they're not putting his DNA in CODIS, or they're not in such a hurry to do that, or they're not in such a hurry to test it against all these other cases, is because they know, I think the way Bill said it was, if they put it in CODIS, it would light up like a Christmas tree.
Right, and that's what he was told by
somebody,
a detective that was not involved in the case. Is the suspicion was CODIS is going to go nuts when you put this guy in there. That was his hunch. And also that's going to create a problem, because you not only might have a whole lot of work created from a bunch of, we now have a match in this case or that case or whatever, but there are probably currently people in prison for some of the murders that will turn out to be tied to this guy.
Exactly.
Which I think is a horrible reason to not want to put him in CODIS.
Right. Yeah, that's awful.
You should be running to put this in CODIS.
Yeah, so if you're listening, the Virginia State Police and the FBI, they're the ones that are kind of in charge of the Colonial Parkway murders investigations. Feel free to reach out or voice your support that these cases get solved. I mean, Bill Thomas, my gosh, how long does the man have to wait for them to solve his sister's murder that should have been solved, frankly, decades ago?
When there's lots of evidence and lots of pathways you could take to get some answers, I'm really stuck on this. We don't want to put this suspect's DNA in CODIS. The police agencies that are working on this are saying we can't because the law is X. And Bill explained that 50 states, 50 different laws on what gets entered into CODIS. Actually 51, because then you have the FBI as well. So there's 51 different standards for what goes into CODIS or what doesn't. The impression I think we took away was that the police are saying we cannot put it in CODIS because these are the rules. The impression we got was, and they are perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, nobody's feelings are hurt about not being able to.
Well, yeah, except all the rest of us.
Right. The people who actually can do something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Now, I got to tell you, for me, just personally, not, I getting outside of some of these more moving and impactful things, I guess maybe fangirled a little or enjoyed. There was this thing, it was an extra thing, and, CrimeCon, I don't know how much money they make, but they're doing all right. They had this separately ticketed event that I went to, Bob did not go to, with John Douglas, who's also, you might know, is like the Mind Hunter. He wrote the book Mind Hunter. Netflix show, I think I don't know that he approved it, but I think it was supposed to be, loosely based off of that. He did a separate thing, and it was, he was a fabulous speaker to listen to. I've read not all of his books, but probably a handful. And I've wondered when I've read him, because, he comes across like a guy who you're like, wow, how could anybody have actually done all these things or have this much experience? And, is this just, how much of this is puffery and how much of it is real? And having now listened to him in person and had him walk through some cases that he worked and discuss them just from memory, from recall, very impressive. And I just want to go read the rest of his books now. But, he even, to his credit, one of the things that I thought was really kind of him was, I think he was scheduled to be on the stage from like 9 till 10, or maybe it was 9:15 till 10, and he came out around when he was supposed to. They basically had to make him stop. It was after 11.
Wow.
So he just kept going. And a couple times he said, guys, I could go till 5 in the morning if you want. And of course, the crowd went crazy. But really enjoyable just to hear somebody who has so much knowledge and so much wisdom to share about their work and their experience and some of the more interesting things that he had encountered during his career. So that was, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed that. So sorry to kind of deviate from there, but
no, I just don't have the attention span for that sort of thing. You're not used to attending any kind of structured event with me, so you were unaware that there comes a point in any session where I'm done and I get up and leave. And
he doesn't say anything either. That's the thing. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go out now. It was just like, I'm looking, Bob's there, I'm looking, and then Bob's not there. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe he had to go to the bathroom, or like, I don't know. Where'd he go?
I'm too fat to kidnap, so we know that didn't happen. But yeah, no, my attention span is very short. And, the one session that we attended, first of all, these are in rooms with, I don't know how many, 500 to 5,000 people in the room. I don't know. It's a bunch.
There's a lot of people there.
Unless you pay for the VIP or Platinum VIP, where you can get up in the front 20 rows, you are a football field away from whoever's talking on stage. So you're pretty much watching a monitor. And one of them, the first one we attended, looked like it was just a normal recording of a video podcast episode. Not even a podcast episode, because the entire thing was pretty much scripted. And my thinking at that point was, I can totally watch this on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I sitting here, watching something that I'm going to see on YouTube? You didn't get any of the presenter's flavor or any inside scoop. Now, there was the one with Bill Thomas and Kristen that were done in an interview style. And while they had obviously planned ahead, there was some spontaneity there, and you got a taste of some more personality. And that's where I came to admire, I don't remember her name.
Mac McCullum.
Mac McCullum, who's a CSI, a crime scene investigator, and...
Her first name's Cheryl, but she goes by Mac.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was like, who is this lady? Because she's got this great southern accent, nice sounding voice, and interviewed Bill and Kristen very well.
And then you Googled her.
Well, I looked on the CrimeCon, whatever it is, to see, like, who is she? And I found out that she's like an Emmy Award winning and also like Law Enforcement of the Year award winning. Like, this woman is incredibly acclaimed. Bill mentioned that he found out that the FBI does listen to his podcast. So then Max said, oh, you think they're listening to this? And he said, I don't know, probably. And she said, okay, well, I am Nancy Grace.
Yeah.
For anybody that's listening. Now, obviously, I think she and Nancy have worked together quite a bit over the years, so I don't think she was just throwing people under the bus.
That was very tongue-in-cheek. It was funny.
It really was.
Well played.
And then that led me to visit Nancy Grace's booth at some point, where there was a woman sitting who was obviously not Nancy Grace. And as we passed by, I told you, I'm going to go call that woman Nancy. And
yeah, I remember that.
And I don't know that you cared or believed me, but a couple hours later, it was that same woman sitting there.
Bob, to be clear, whenever you say you're going to do something that's completely unhinged and strange, I always believe you.
Yeah, well, I think you got to see. But anyway, so I did make it a point a few hours later to go over and say hello and refer to this woman as Nancy and ask her how the twins were doing. And she told me that she was not Nancy Grace. Apparently I wasn't the first one to observe that. And I said, well, the hell you're not. You're in her booth. Look, her name's all over here. And she's like, no, I'm her executive producer, Jackie, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she turned out to be just a wonderful person. We had a nice little chat, and I thought she was just incredibly down to earth and real and fun. So, yeah, lots of cool people there.
I don't want to belabor this too much and make it a crazy long episode.
Well, let's talk about if anyone plans to go to CrimeCon, there's some stuff you should know. Number one, it's freaking expensive.
Yeah, like it's more like you look at the badge price and you think, oh, okay, I can afford whatever. And it goes up. So the earlier you sign up, the cheaper it is. So like if you're at CrimeCon, like when we were just there, you can sign up for next year's, which is going to be in Denver in September. It's the weekend after Labor Day weekend.
September 2025.
Right.
In Denver.
In Denver, yeah. So if you signed up at CrimeCon, I think it was like $199, and then it immediately goes up. So I think now the badges for next year are going to go on sale on June 10th. And for anybody who wasn't at CrimeCon, then I think it's like $229 maybe is like the starting price. But then it's going to continue to just rise until you get there.
Yeah, and if you wait until the last minute, it's about, well, at least for the one in Nashville, it's about $400, and that's for the standard badge. If you want to go to the gold VIP or the platinum VIP, you're $1,500 or so for those. And the places that they have these things, for instance, is Gaylord Fokker Opryland. It's the Gaylord Opryland. Every time I hear the word Gaylord, I just think of Gaylord Fokker from Meet the Fockers.
It's fair.
That was at their block rate. Wasn't it something like $229 a night or something?
That sounds about. But then there was the resort fee, so basically it was like $250.
Yeah,
a night.
$250 a night. I mean, I'm more a Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you.
You stayed at the La Quinta.
Oh, we don't want to get into that. We don't want to get into that.
Gosh.
I'm sure my stay there will come up on an episode of Forensic Files someday. I had a beautiful view of a half-filled green swimming pool that peered on over to the interstate 10 feet from that. I had some strange characters all about. Room keys were printed upside down. That seemed to be a normal thing that I don't know. But hey, for $46 you can't go wrong.
That's true. I mean, you can't beat that. I think some other good points for CrimeCon are, I like to be cold. I mean, I favor being frigid, more frigid than most people. But I had to wear a hoodie for some of the sessions because, especially the second day, it had to be like 50 degrees in some of those rooms. Because I had a hoodie on and I still felt a little chilly.
I noticed at one point, I too I prefer cold to hot. My kneecaps were freezing. My patellas were icicles.
So the point there is, dress in layers. And then I noticed a lot of people, because it was Nashville and it's June, so it's warm outside, had on their sandals or their flippy floppies. You just be thoughtful. And I would say too, when it comes to the footwear, I mean, I wore my running shoes, and you should definitely wear some footwear that you're okay with taking 20,000 steps in, because there's a lot of walking at CrimeCon.
I didn't see anybody happy in heels. I'll tell you that.
Definitely not.
After a couple hours, I took mine off and put on my slip-ons. So.
Yeah, I did notice you switched to your Crocs. So
yeah, I was not dealing. That was a disorienting mess. And can we talk about that damn exhibit hall?
Yeah, we have to. And I don't know if it's like this every time. And I won't be all negative. There's so much positive out of CrimeCon, and the people who put that on, it's a lot of work, whatever. I'm not. This isn't throwing shade. They do a great job. But that being said, I've been to different types of conventions, different types of shows, all sorts of events that are like this, where you have rows of tables with people set up to engage a mass of people. This one, the amount of space between, the walkway where you're walking between, tables facing each other was fairly limited. It was a little tighter than one would prefer, I think. But then also just the way that it kind of slinked around, it was not like you had, here's a bunch of lines of tables. It was sort of this weird, how would you describe it?
Somebody got drunk and laid out that sumbitch. And I too have been to conventions and conferences from very small to very large, and I have never seen one this convoluted. Normally you go through these things and you walk down one row and then you can come back up another, and maybe there's even a whole nother section over here or over there or whatever, but it's very clear to you where you've been and where you haven't. And this thing, you'd be going down the road and all of a sudden it would tee off, and then it was a maze of some freaking sort. We walked around that thing for probably an hour trying to find one person that we had talked to, trying to find their booth again. And in an hour of searching, we never found it. And it wasn't that big. We made like what we felt like we covered the whole thing like 3 times and still never found what we were looking for. And I get it. Some of the exhibitors, they didn't bring any kind of signage or boards or anything. They just had their little, 8.5 by 11 name hung behind them. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a clear separation between the booths a lot of times, but the way it was a maze. Mm-hmm. It wasn't...
felt like a labyrinth, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a bad Walmart, because the worst Walmart was easier to get around than this thing. But you still had the jackasses that like to have their reunion right in the middle of this tiny little aisleway that you couldn't get past.
That's what killed me. Is like, all right, guys, come on, do better. You can't just 7 people can't stand in a circle in the middle of like.
Yeah, we got 5 feet for everybody to walk through, and y'all are, I don't know what you're doing, summoning spirits or blessing something. This is a Hare Krishna booth in the middle of the aisleway or something. And we got to talk about that Annalisa thingy.
Okay.
You'll have to remember her name. I just know that there's one place that you're going down a row and there's things and people. Mm-hmm. Here's what I also didn't understand. They talk about podcaster row. There were podcasters not in a row. They were over here and over there and up on this end, and they don't know what a row is. I would prefer all the creators be on one row. Because a lot of those little booths that we had, I didn't know what they're doing. I mean, you know me. I walk up to them like, why are you here?
Somebody was there with a taser, though, because you heard it about every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, if they're actually using it, because I love to watch somebody ride the lightning. There's nothing more fun than that. But they weren't letting you do any, actual demos. So otherwise, you'd have been on the ground shaking like a fish. But yeah, so Podcaster Row wasn't a row. It was an L with an S and a hook and a loop and I don't know what.
All right, what's your beef with Annie Elise?
Number one, I don't know her. I don't know that I've ever heard her name before that day.
She's super popular. I've watched her stuff. I'm a fan.
Oh, she's gorgeous. She is easy on the eyes. I will tell you that. I will say she's easy on the eyes. Obviously, she's popular.
Where are you going with this?
And I'll also say that, unfortunately, because we were bottlenecked at her little photo area 2,700 times, I did get to see her interaction with a lot of people, and she seemed like a very nice, kind, genuine, good person from what we could tell. My problem is that you got this little row, and it happens to be at some weird little juncture where there's a lot of traffic, and they got this photo board set up, but it's not like you step into her booth and take a photo. It's a row of tables lined up, and then out in front of the tables is her backdrop, and everybody wants to take a picture with this girl, which I don't know why. Y'all dumbasses. You want to take pictures with somebody, you find somebody ugly to take a picture with, and you look better. But they all take pictures with this gorgeous girl. I mean, everybody taking pictures with her. It blocked up the whole thing. Every time we would end up in that section, it was like, here we freaking go again. So we ended up just completely avoiding that section because you couldn't get through.
Yeah, I wonder if whoever planned that expo area just underestimated how popular she was going to be, because it seemed to me that they did a fairly decent job on the one hand of, like, True Crime Garage. Those guys, Nick and the captain, had a line of at least, 10, 5, 7 people.
I think it was
always
consistently a dozen people waiting to shake their hand and say hi.
And take a picture, because they were taking pictures too. But they put them sort of at like a corner where there were doors, and so people could form a line, and it was generally out of the way. And I noticed there was another, maybe it was where they had like the Dateline thing, and they had the, like Josh Mankiewicz, they had him set up in an area that was similar. So it was almost like maybe they were aware that there was going to be that, or they just got lucky. I don't know. But with her, I don't know if they just didn't anticipate the popularity, and so because they had her along the one wall, but it was like in the middle, and so so
the line
is just in the way.
Yeah, the line to go take a picture with her is blocking up this whole side of, I don't know, 5 or 6 different booths you couldn't even get to because the line to go drool over her was blocking them.
And to Bob's point, like, that's not her fault. She goes wherever they put her and sets her stuff up.
Oh, right. I'm not ragging on her at all. Good on her that she has a following, that she's popular, that, like I said, not just looks. She seemed to be a very kind and pleasant and...
Well, on the last day, so you hit the road early, And a lot of people did. And so the last day, things were not quite so crazy in there. Some of the exhibitors had kind of packed up, or, things were just more chill. And so as I was walking through, there actually wasn't anybody talking to her. And so I had an opportunity to just chat briefly. And one of the things I told her, which I'd say this is true, and this will be another point for folks who want to go to CrimeCon. If you want to go to CrimeCon, and speaking about being expensive, T-shirts were $35, $40.
Yeah, the cheapest start. The ones sold by CrimeCon were $35 for a T-shirt,
and then the sweaters were like $70. And this is like I'll say they were nice in the sense that like they looked fine, but they weren't like it didn't come with a gold bar. I mean, it was just a T-shirt, just a sweatshirt. But they sold out of these things because everybody had to have the CrimeCon Nashville 2024 shirt, except for the brothers in crime, because we don't crap gold, so we did not buy those. But
I paid less for my hotel room than one of them hoodies.
Yeah. Back to Annie Elise. She had some swag out, which I'm not sure that I recognized or saw that she had it because of all the lines of people like we were talking.
You're right.
But the last day when things calmed down, I was able to see it. And her stuff was, whoever is behind her stuff, the design and whatnot, and I don't know if it's her, she has somebody. It's really well designed, and it's nice stuff. And I told her, I said, hey, CrimeCon should really come talk to you about helping them make their stuff, because while it was not bad, it was not overly impressive. And for the price they're charging, I would expect it to be a little more wow factor.
Okay, but look, we went into that merch store, I don't know, probably midday on day one.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like the freaking government cheese line. Them ladies in there, and ladies, I know you're listening. I know 80-some% of our listeners are ladies. God love you. But these women were in there like it was Christmas 1984, and it was all the Cabbage Patch dolls for $1 a piece. I could not believe the way these women, and it was 99% women in this merch store. There were a couple of dudes. Most of them were just looking like, what the hell is going on here? And even in the book section, my gosh.
Yeah, the book thing was crazy, and they were charging like double what stuff goes for on Amazon. I mean, it was nuts.
I don't read books to begin with. Audible reads them to me so that I can be somewhat educated.
In case y'all were wondering.
Because I just don't have the patience to read a book mostly. I need to be doing something else, but good Lord, that looked like that little book section, and I didn't recognize any of them. I tried to peer over. I wasn't getting in there. I was afraid I'd get stampeded. But, I mean, these women were scarfing up armfuls of books. I mean, armfuls. It looked like, ants had just invaded the picnic table.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I'll tell you, I think it was maybe midday day 2, right? So it starts on a Friday, and by lunchtime Saturday they had sold out of the official T-shirts, and you can't buy them online. You can only buy them there. So then there were people in the unofficial Facebook groups who are like, hey, I wasn't able to get a T-shirt. Like, does anybody have one they want to sell? And so, I mean, I feel like I should have invested and then just charged more for the daggone thing.
Yeah, right? Yeah, there'll be an aftermarket for them. Who knew? So you ask why they charge $35 for because they can get it.
Right.
And it turns out, obviously they could have sold more, and they probably could have sold them for 40 or 50.
So the merch thing, yeah, you gotta, it's going to cost you some money, even if, if you want to do the whole full experience. It's cold. The food is, they had food trucks there in addition to the food that was on site. And then at this particular one, there's a mall across the way that had a food court. So food options were plentiful, and you could kind of get, everything from Burger King in the mall food court that was a quick walk or shuttle ride away to the food trucks they had set up outside that a lot of people took advantage of. Or, if you wanted to pay, at one point I broke down because I didn't want to have to go too far. And so I had a pretzel and a 16-ounce Mountain Dew for $20 from the resort.
Woo!
It's the most expensive Auntie Anne's I've ever bought in my life.
Well, then we did pretty good on that.
The pizza is, yeah, that was the deal. I immediately regretted. I thought, this will be cheap, and then it was not. So
the pizza was $15 for 2 slices and a drink, and
they were massive slices.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous to me because, I don't know, everything's ridiculous now, but in the context of the current economy, it was worth it not to leave campus. And then
at the Gaylord.
Right. And we get, I come through the line last to get mine, and you're out, having lunch with some chick I've never seen before.
Her name was Becca, and she follows us now. Thanks, Becca. Hopefully you're listening.
Right.
Thanks for letting us share the table with you.
It took me a minute.
Yeah, you did have a look on your face like, what are you doing?
But then I realized, number one, your wife would kill you, and number two, I looked around quickly and saw, okay, this is like a New York City thing where there are no free tables. So you find someone that looks the most clean and ask them if you can sit with them, if you can share their table. And we had a great conversation with her.
Yeah, Becca, I think, was a local, or at least was very familiar with Nashville, and so gave us some of the lowdown on the resort and the area and everything, and it was nice. Also, some cases that were local to Nashville. The Tabitha Tudor's case, she's been missing for over a decade. And that's one that we're going to have to look into in the future. So
yeah, so thanks for sharing your table with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and that really, if you're thinking about going, I really think the people made the event at the end of the day.
I could do without any of them sessions.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, honestly, I had way more fun. I met Bob, the other Bob from Defense Diaries, Bob Mata, and his wife, Allie, and we had a great conversation. It was really nice to meet them. We met the folks from Murder in the Rain, and you really hit it off with them because y'all were vibing on, I don't remember, I just remember laughing at you guys talking about something. And
I think what we were talking about was they've been doing it for 5 years, and if you're not listening to Murder in the Rain yet, check them out. They's good people. What we quickly found out was that I'm bad with names, but I can picture her face, and I remember the lady, and we hit it off almost instantly because I think we might have been separated at birth. It seems like we have a lot of similar personality and outlook on things and what we bring to the podcast. So I hope we get to work with them.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Y'all definitely had some shared energy for sure. But yeah, the people, I mean, it was all these, from just regular attendees, like you said, sharing lunch tables and sharing stories, hearing things about what some of these people have been through, their experiences, good and bad, with law enforcement, the progress on cases that need to be brought to light so that they can have some progress. Really, that is, to me, that was the value in it all. And I'm grateful that for all of the things that we could nitpick and talk about and complain about, aka the way that Podcaster Row and the exhibit hall was set up, that was really the big one. CrimeCon puts on this event, and it could very easily devolve whatever into just a money grab and just like all the wrong things. They could glamorize stuff and they could make things whatever. But my sense was that, and having spoken to so many family members of victims, just interacting with these folks, it seems like they're doing a halfway decent job of keeping what should be the main thing at this event. So they really are sort of focused on, let's do this in a way that is educational, that gets stories out there, that promotes positive and the correct viewpoint for victims, families, and to share these stories and to learn and to educate in a way that is overall a net positive for all of us, I thought.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. But I will say there are some folks there in attendance that their potato ain't baked all the way through.
Oh, well, I mean, if you think there's not somebody sitting here recording this podcast right now whose potato's not baked all the way through.
No, I'm just, what I mean is that I didn't feel intimidated or scared by it. There was nothing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Nothing there that was fearful to me, but there were some people that.
Well, there had to be somebody who'd murdered somebody there, no doubt, right? I mean.
Chances are, just statistically.
Probability, yeah. Yeah, so, and that's one thing. I did think it was interesting how, like, in the Facebook groups, they have this red solo group, and it was like you put this sticker on your badge to show that you're there alone, which.
What the hell?
You couldn't pay me to do that, but, I mean.
Yeah, that says just come mug, rape, or murder me.
And that's like, y'all got to hit me up in the comments, but I noticed in these groups, a lot of people were posting and saying, like, hey, I'm a single mom coming in on whatever time. Does somebody want to share an Uber to the hotel? And I'm like.
No!
Yeah, I just wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm too crazy. Maybe I'm too paranoid.
Come on, ladies. Y'all listening to true crime. Y'all going to the conference, so clearly you're into it. You ought to know better than do dumb shit like that.
I can just hear it in Keith Morrison's voice, right? Like, it was about to be the time of her life.
Right.
She was on her way to CrimeCon in Nashville.
There were several people we met there that were true crime, what did I call them? Consumers, connoisseurs, whatever.
Yeah.
That have been into true crime for years, and whatever the situation, a lot of them that we talked to, it was first time here, family's not into this, but I am, so I got my friend. We're here, and this is my vacation, my treat to myself, whatever, to come, check this out for a few days. And that was really awesome.
Yeah, good for you guys. Well, that's a pretty good recap of CrimeCon 2024 in Nashville, and like we said, CrimeCon 2025 will be in Denver. Are you going? Will you be there? Do you want us to go? I don't know if we'll be there or not. We'll have to wait and see. And I don't know, maybe one of these days we'll get a booth at that thing. What do you think, Bob?
I don't know that I could sit in the same place like that for that long. I liked mingling, honestly.
Well, maybe we'll give you like an area. You can just mingle along the row.
I'll set up my booth in the smoking area. How's that?
Well, maybe they'll let you do that.
Look, I'm telling you, I've told you this before. You meet some really cool people in the smoking area.
I mean, I don't disagree.
You were with me. You met them.
There's always there's a camaraderie there. People are fun in the smoking area for sure.
That's right.
All right, folks. Well, that's it. CrimeCon 2024. If you have questions, let us know. Hit us up on social. We're pretty much everywhere, or send us a message, and we'd be happy to answer.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on the Brothers in Crime podcast. Feedback and suggestions are always welcome. For links and resources related to this episode, please see the show notes or visit us at brothersincrimepodcast.com. We hope you'll save, subscribe, or bookmark us on your favorite podcast site, and join us for the next episode.